In today's episode, I am discussing the importance of not only taking your own advice, but also the importance of doing the personal growth work. I'm sharing with you a personal story from this week just gone, and I have to laugh because it ties into last week's episode so perfectly. Let's dive in. Oh gosh, okay, so I have to laugh. In last week's episode, I mentioned that I was feeling really good and that I knew the universe was going to send me a curveball, and then I went on to talk about how to reset your mind after an argument. And I was right. Because 2 days after that episode went live, I got into a heated discussion. And then, oh my goodness. So I got involved in a pretty heated argument at my kids' school with a staff member. And oh my goodness, honestly, it's just, I love moments like this because I think it's just so fantastic when you have to implement your own advice. And this happens all the time, right? You give some like really stellar advice out to a friend or a family member, and then the exact advice that you gave, you now need to implement yourself. And the thing is, I actually haven't gotten into a heated discussion with anyone in a long time. My last one was probably with my brother-in-law in a group chat we were in, where he said something, I'm not going to go into it, but he said something that annoyed me and I raised it. And it didn't annoy anybody else in the group chat, but the message behind what he said annoyed me. And that was well over a month ago now. And prior to that, I couldn't even tell you the last time I'd gotten into a heated discussion with somebody. I don't make a habit of getting into heated discussions with people because I'm really aware that most people don't care, right? They live in their bubble. They say whatever runs through their head, and usually they haven't considered how that comment that they make might land for another person. They don't consider their tone, they don't consider the comment itself, and they don't consider the platform that they are making the comment in. As an example, one of the reasons I love the podcasting platform is you can hear my voice, and most importantly, you can hear my tone. And that's really important. The words we deliver matter, but the tone we deliver a message in matters more. And we've all been there where a text or even a live comment that we've made, it's been misconstrued because it was either taken out of context or our tone was off when we said something. And we have all said, oh, I didn't mean it like that. That sounded really bad. I'm so sorry. Like, that is not at all what I meant. But there are a lot of people in this world that have zero awareness. They have no mindfulness, and they don't realize how their comments make other people feel. And if you have the time and energy to raise this, sometimes it lands and sometimes it doesn't. With my brother-in-law, I had the time to raise the issue, and because this wasn't the first time I was raising this particular issue, I was pretty sure it would land and that he would show me, some respect out of it. And if not, he now knows that every time this comes up, I'm going to make the point to actually say something, to say, look, I'm not engaging in these conversations. I'm not interested in these types of conversations. And you might be listening and you might be thinking, well, get over it, Laurie. If no one else in the group cared, why did you? But I look at it from the perspective of respect for all. We are never going to get anywhere in this world if we don't make space for each other and respect that each of us think differently about things. If someone said to me, I don't agree, and this conversation is making me upset, I would immediately stop. There are plenty of people I can have that particular conversation with. I don't need to upset another person, and I don't want to. I don't want to spend my days upsetting family and friends if I don't need to. I consider myself to be an inclusive person. I'm not in the business of ruffling as many feathers as possible. You go and live your life and live the best possible version of that life. And so, hopefully, well, in this particular occasion, we came to an agreement. My brother-in-law and I, we love each other and we have known each other for a really long time. So we came to an agreement that we wouldn't have these conversations anymore. I did not do so well with this staff member. Oh my God. I did not do so well. So I get into this heated discussion. Essentially, I was waiting in the library and no one was there. And I waited and eventually 3 people walked in. And it was like first thing in the morning. It was really, really busy. Usually there is somebody in the library, but on this occasion there wasn't somebody in the library. And so these 3 people walk in and I said, is someone meant to be in here? Because I've been kind of waiting for like 10 minutes. Now, here's where I will be completely honest and say that I just should not have made that comment. It doesn't matter how long I was waiting. 10 minutes isn't a lifetime. I was extremely aware of how I delivered this message, but at the end of the day, the message was, where is the person who should be here to serve me? Like, I've been waiting. Where is the library person? To which this woman, one of the women, responded, you shouldn't even be in here. If no one is here, you should wait outside. And that was the tone. It just felt very aggressive. And I actually don't have an issue with the comment. The comment is bang on. It's right. If no one is in the library, I should have waited outside. But I guess in that moment, I didn't see the point in waiting outside. The door was open and I had figured someone was in there and then I just stayed in there and I didn't see an issue with that. But the way this woman delivered this to me was incredibly rude. The message was filled with disdain. She spoke to me like I was garbage, and that really offended me. That really, really offended me. I don't speak to people like that, and I wasn't about to let this person speak to me that way. And now usually what I do is I approach when something like this happens, I try not to let the emotion come into it, and I approach these things from an inquisitive place. And so I was quite shocked, but I said, hey, listen, I get it. The message is fine. I understand what you're saying. But why are you speaking to me like that? With that tone? To which she responded with the same tone, I shouldn't have to tell people things that make common sense. And my response was, I was like, wow, you are an incredibly rude person. Now, I know what happened because when she walked into the library with these 2 other women, she was discussing a different argument she had just been in with another person. And these women, they were sort of consoling her. Not really, they weren't really, but they were saying oh, okay, oh, I see. But what happened is she needed someone to expel her anger onto from this previous argument, and I was there. And we do this a lot. We all do this. We are in a bad mood, and instead of yelling at our husband because he didn't fold a basket of laundry and he just should have, we yell at our children. We're, PO'd at our boss, so we're rude to the coffee guy who is flat chat and we're annoyed that our order took 2 minutes longer than it should have. Or we scoff at the person who sidesteps in front of us when we're walking down a path. And we turn these little incidents into these ridiculously big and totally unnecessary things. In fact, I'm reminded of the conversation that Barney has in that show, How I Met Your Mother. I don't know if you've seen it, but he has this theory and it's called the chain of screaming. And oh man, it's so funny. So Barney's theory is when you're once screamed at by a higher authority, so when someone in a higher position than you screams at you, or someone who you consider to be in a higher position screams at you, one must then go and scream at someone else in a position or an authority lower than them. But it's so true. And in his theory, he says So one of the characters, Marshall, is being screamed at by his boss, and he's saying to Marshall, so the boss will scream at you, and then you need to go and scream at your wife. And his wife, Lily, she's a kindergarten teacher, and so she will then go and scream at one of the 5-year-old students who happens to be Marshall's boss's daughter. And then that little 5-year-old girl will go home and scream at Marshall's boss. And thus, the chain of screaming is complete. But it's true. This is true. This happens. So I'm involved in this situation, and I actually say to this woman, because I'm just so annoyed by how she's spoken to me, and I say to her, look, I don't let people speak to me like this, so I'm going to report your behavior to the office. And lo and behold, in that very moment, in walks in the person I would have made the complaint to. And so this woman goes with her hand, she sort of presents this person to me as if to say, well, here she is. And she actually goes, well, here you go. Here she is. You may as well make your complaint now. And I was like, wow, all right. No, well, I'm going to, because I've said that I would have actually made the complaint because I did think that it was very rude. And so I make the complaint, and, I'm told that this person who has spoken to me this way will be spoken to. And it seemed obvious to me that I'm not the first person who's made a complaint about this other person's behavior. And off I trot. That's it. I'm out of here. I don't need this anymore. It's already taken up too much of my time, and off I trot to enjoy the rest of my day. But I'm still annoyed. And when I get home, every now and again, I'm having this phantom conversation in my head about what I would say if I was given another chance. And again, I say, oh, stop, Laurie. For God's sake, it's over. Just stop. And of course, it doesn't work. And the conversation resurfaces in my mind, and I'm left, dilly-dallying around with this phantom conversation. And now I know. I know I have to sit down and I have to process this conversation. This whole conversation on paper. Using the questions that I gave you guys last week. Darn it! I have to do the work. And I know I have to do the work because I don't really understand why I'm so upset about this conversation. I don't really understand why this conversation keeps resurfacing. So I sit down and I type out my questions. And I stop and I take a deep breath. And I shift the emotion out of the experience. I engage the rational part of my brain and I look at the questions. Do I really care? Or does my ego care? This person means nothing to me. I don't know this person. I rarely see this person. She won't remember me because I am a mum, just a sea of mums at a school of 700 kids. She won't remember me. So me, no, I don't care. My ego, oh yeah, my ego cares. Yes, it does. My ego is super PO'd about this. My ego cares so much about this conversation that it wants to waltz back down to the school and give this woman a red hot reality check. And it's ridiculous. Is she right? Could I have waited outside? 100% I could. There was no need for me to be in the library, and my issue was that there was no one there to serve me. Because obviously I consider myself to be a very busy mum and waiting 10 minutes is allegedly too long for me. Her issue was that I was inside the library. So yes, she is right. I could easily have waited outside. Will this conversation matter in 5 years? No. Someone in 5 years will come up to me and say, oh, I listened to your podcast about that argument you had at school. And I'll say, what? What argument? Wait, which podcast is this? No, this is not something that will matter in 5 years. But because I don't know why I'm so upset, I now need to explore that. So I read the next question that I've written out, which is, what are you really upset about here? Why are you so annoyed? What does bother me, or why does this conversation bother me so much? And now this one takes a few minutes. I need to sit with this. I need to acknowledge that I'm angry and that my ego is hurt. I need to acknowledge what about this conversation was so triggering. And this isn't always really obvious or easy, which is why this question in this process is so important. So, what I came up with for this particular occurrence is that all I am trying to do is be a good mother. All I was trying to do was get another book for my daughter to read over the weekend. And every day I try to wake up with a smile and treat everyone with kindness. And I'm doing the absolute best I can here. And some days that's really hard. Sorry, getting a little emotional. But some days that's really hard. I run 2 businesses, I have 2 kids, I have no before or after school care, I have no weekend care, I don't have a lot of family support around. So sometimes it's really hard, and I'm trying to leave a legacy of decency and kindness in this world. I don't need to be spoken to like I'm garbage. I'm a human being. I deserve better. And right now, I'm pushing really hard. I am pushing really hard to make this podcast a success. And this is new ground for me. I've never done something like this before. And I am navigating a whole new space, and that's scary and it's time consuming. And when you're busy, time consuming is hard. You don't have time for that, obviously. And I'm trying to find my feet and balance in it all. And at the moment, I'm working really like much longer hours than I ever have. And I'm trying to do that around my family. And I am also trying to maintain my conscious parenting. And I'm trying to be a loving wife, and I'm trying to be a good friend and a good daughter and a good sister. And, you know, I think there is a lot of fear just beneath the surface that no matter how hard I try, I'm not going to stack up in the long run. And that is a lot of personal stuff to share in such a public platform. It's actually, you know, it's quite scary to be out on this ledge sometimes. But I wouldn't have gotten to the bottom of this if I didn't do the work. I wouldn't have understood that this is how I'm feeling right now if I didn't process why this conversation, this heated discussion has angered me so much. This isn't about her. Obviously, it's got nothing to do with her. And ultimately, taking these rational steps, asking myself these rational questions, they have led me immediately to a place of calm. They have allowed me to let go of this conversation. I won't think of this conversation again. And I also won't now need to go and scream at my husband or my kids because I need to complete the chain of screaming. You know, I created space to process my anger, and I created some space to get to the actual root cause of it. And if we all take the time, and really this whole process took me about 10 minutes, if we all take the time to ask the questions and we write everything down and we start to dig a little deeper, we can start to eliminate some of the pain that we are bringing back into this world. And we can start to learn some really cool things about ourselves. And that alone is worth everything. That is worth so much. Thank you so much for listening to today's very personal and in the end quite emotional share. I appreciate you and I thank you for being here. This is the Live Mindfully podcast and I am Laurie Moore. Until next time, take good care of yourself.